Hey guys, it's Alex with Paragon Performance. Today we're going to be installing our header for the C8 Corvette. These are a high quality stainless steel construction made right here in the USA. They feature a equal length runner design as well as a optimized collector to increase the efficiency of scavenging on both banks of the engine. We have developed and tested this in-house, showing some of the best power gains across the entire rev range. With picking up numbers up to 25 wheel horsepower and 27 foot-pounds of torque. Let's get to this install. All right, before we get into tearing anything apart, we are going to go over the convertible differences with this install. The headers do fit the convertible, however, there are a few things that you have to do or deal with differently than you do on a coupe. First of all, you have a coolant reservoir that actually sits up here. You will need to remove the 10mm bolt, slide it and swivel it out, and set it on top of the intake manifold. You will also have some coolant lines that are hooked to that. They are aluminum that run down the valve cover. You will need to unbolt those from the top of the valve covers and basically make them so you can move them, as you will have to kind of shift them around out of your way when trying to pull the factory manifold out and install the Paragon header. One of the other big differences is when you are installing the Paragon header, you will actually have to remove the valve covers from the engine. You can source a new gasket from your dealer for this if you would like to replace it. They are considered a reusable gasket, so you can reuse it if you want to. Just make sure you put a towel or something over the top once you've removed the valve cover. There's several just 10mm screws around the outside that you have to undo. And that just gives you that little bit extra clearance to slide it through because you have a convertible top. All your convertible top stuff is up here. So it does tighten this area up a little bit of trying to fit that longer tubed header down through there. It is possible. It does work. Undoing the valve cover gives you that extra space that you need. Also, when removing the heat shields on the convertible, getting these heat shields out of here are a little more of a challenge. You do have to kind of bend them and tweak them a little bit to get them out, but it can be done. Just be patient with it. But other than that, the majority of everything else is going to be exactly the same between the coupe and the convertible. You're going to have all your PCV lines that you have to deal with exactly the same. So let's get started on pointing out what we need to take apart here, and then we will get to taking it apart. We're going to start here and remove the two PCV connections at the valve cover, one at the intake manifold, one at the back down here that goes under the intake manifold, and then we'll move across. You will have one connection at the air intake tube here in front of the throttle body, as well as two PCV connections on that valve cover and the one going to the oil reservoir. We're gonna undo all of those, take them off the car for now. All of these PCV hoses are all quick connect fittings. They will have a button here on the sides that we will need to depress. Just depress that firmly and you should be able to just pull them off of all of their quick connect fittings. All right, so next we're going to unplug the O2 sensors. Using a 10mm socket, we are going to remove this screw, and the one for the map sensor. We are also going to, using a small pair of pliers, squeeze these together that hold this EVAP line and remove them from the crossbars. And then we will take a panel pry tool. If you have mag ride, there is a Christmas tree clip under here that we need to remove as well. And then using a T30, we're going to take out all the bolts and remove these cross braces. All right, next thing that we need to do is we need to remove these metal clips off of this EVAP line as well as this fuel line. And we're going to next we need to disconnect this quick connect as well as the fuel line quick connect here on the other side. Make sure you put some rags under that. It will drip a little bit of fuel. You will need a disconnect tool and you will need to remove these retaining clips for these off. You can sometimes do them by hand, but you can use a little screwdriver and pry them off of there as well. We'll set that aside. And using your disconnect tool, disconnect. Do the same thing for the fuel line. This one we will also want to release a clip down here that is attached to, so we have more movement to swivel it out of the way when removing and installing the manifold. All right, so from the top here, we've got most everything we need to get out of the way to remove the factory headers. We'll still need to pull an O2 sensor and whatnot. We do need to remove all the heat shields off of it, as well as some other stuff from the underside that's kind of difficult to film. So I have a header that is assembled and I will show you that off the vehicle. So this is what the manifold looks like outside of the vehicle. This is a fully assembled manifold with all the heat shields on it. As you can see, we need to remove the heat shield so we can get to the 3 bolts here where the catalytic converter is to take the nuts off to remove it from there. We also need to remove the heat shielding here from the bottom side as well, so we can access the 5 bolts that hold the manifold to the head. And in order to get to a couple of these bolts, we do have to remove the plug wire because the spark plug comes through right here as well. I do recommend removing the spark plugs as well so you don't accidentally crack one, as there is a little bit of weight to this, and if you accidentally drop it you can crack a spark plug. To start here, we're going to remove the 3 10mm screws on the inside edge here. This is going to remove this inner heat shield. Next, we are going to remove the outside 3 screws on this outer or upper and outer heat shield as well. These 2 are a little bit more difficult to get to. You will want to use a ratcheting wrench or something like that. It also is a little difficult to get up and out of the compartment that it sits in. You can bend and flex these around. Do whatever you have to do to get them out. We don't need them with the new manifold. So after we've got this one off, this lower part of the heat shield on this manifold is actually 2 pieces. You have an upper and a lower. We are going to unbolt the 3 bolts from the upper, and we're going to do the same with that. You will have to kind of tip it down and slide it up and out, but you will have to flex it around a little bit to get it out. And then from the bottom side, once you've removed those plug wires, removed your spark plugs for safety of not cracking them, we're going to remove these 2 10mm screws as well. This heat shield is extremely difficult to come out the top. It is actually better to just kind of rotate it out of your way and leave it setting underneath the car. Once we undo the 5 bolts that bolt it to the head itself, we'll be able to lift that out when the manifold's out of the way. These bolts are a 12mm hex. All of the spark plugs are a standard 5/8 spark plug socket. Let's go get it taken out of the car. All right, now we've got our stuff removed here from the top side. The heat shield on the underside dropped down below. We have the 3 bolts here from the cat flange undone. I'm going to leave one of them just threaded on there so it can't completely fall off of there on its own. We need to raise the vehicle and access the 5 bolts from the manifold to head, as well as undo the spark plug wires and spark plugs. It's gonna be hard to film. As you can see here, there is a blue wire that is the plug wire. We need to actually remove that from the head side. That'll be the side, the bigger end of the plug wire with the aluminum shield. Twist it a little bit and then pull it. And you will need to do that for all 4 cylinders. And obviously the spark plug is on the other end of that when you pull it off. Remove those 4 spark plugs and then remove the 5 12mm headed bolts. These are a factory locking style bolt, so they will come out hard the entire way. That is normal. 2. Just gonna remove that nut that we left on there earlier. And just grab your manifold and pull it away from the head just a little bit, and you will slide it forward until it's off the studs. Pull your EVAP line up out of the way, and then you are going to just rotate it and slide it right up and out. So we're gonna pull our old gasket out because you get a new one with the headers. We're gonna remove this heat shield as well and add this to our discard pile. All right, before we get this new header installed, we need to remove this gasket here out of the cat because you are supplied with a new one. Usually just use a little flathead screwdriver and they pretty much just pop right out. And reinstall the new one. We're going to take our new Paragon manifold. We're going to gently slide that in. And then line it up with these studs on the cat. Being careful not to knock that gasket out of there. Then we're going to use one of the original nuts here and reinstall it so it kind of holds it up here in place for us. We're not gonna just do anything more than just hand tight with it. And then you will take the original gasket and with a little wiggling and whatnot, you can fish this down in here and get it set between the manifold and the head. Reinstall the nuts on the studs for the cats. Just start them, they don't need to be tightened down yet. And then we're going to take the bolts that were provided with the header. We're going to reinstall those through the header, through the gasket, making sure that we line that up, and then into the head itself. Being careful to not cross thread anything. They should thread in easily if everything is correct. All right, once you've got a few of those bolts installed, so your gasket is lined up and positioned with the bolts there on the head, we are going to go in from the underside and reinstall the last couple bolts, torque everything down to spec. And we'll come back up, tighten our bolts down here at the cat. We need to repeat all of this same process on the other side for the installation. And from there, reinstall everything in reverse order of how you took it apart. There you have it, not too terrible of an install. Be patient, take your time. I've installed several sets of these. I understand any struggles. Hopefully this video helps you with the install. Just enjoy that power that you're picking up as an end result. As always, like, subscribe, and comment. We'll see you guys next time.